could not end June, the month of Pride, without talking about some Sapphic love stories, okay?
Be who you are for your pride.
I have 5 Sapphic love stories that I enjoyed that I think you will enjoy too. Let's start with number 1. I accidentally locked down a witch. This just came out and this book was funny. This book just came out. I liked it. It was funny. If you follow this series, this culminates in finding out why the witch was putting together all of these pieces and finding these women. And now she has found the love of her life and she was keeping a secret from her. She had been trying to get back home for several decades and she needed to have these women in her life to do this. But while doing that, she also found the love of her life. I don't want to give too much away. This is definitely a fantasy story, but it was funny. It had a little bit of everything in it. It was definitely blackety black with a little, sprinkle of magic in it. And I think it's something that represents what happens if, I don't want to give it away, but I'm going to just say it. What happens if there was a society that was all run by women? And what would that look like? And how would nope, almost gave it away. But okay, so I accidentally locked down a witch. That's my first Sapphic love story. Next one is Down South Bayou. This was an interesting story because it had a sports theme, but also it talked about what happens when you are learning to love yourself, learning to understand yourself, but also wanting a love while yearning for this love by not doing too much, if that makes sense. It was really about the story of someone who was like, I know what I want, but I self-sabotage sometimes. And in that self-sabotaging, I also deal with people who are not good for me. And when I finally meet someone who is good for me, I still have a little twinge of that self-sabotage. And so I need to get my shit together. That's pretty much what this story was about. Like, I need to focus and I need to trust this person that's in front of me that is saying exactly and showing me exactly who they are and not worry about what's happening outside of our bubble. So I enjoyed this story. This is Down South Bayou. A little kissing between friends. This was, I think, one of my favorite out of this Sapphic series because I felt like, one, it talked about what happens when you have a person who is more mask presenting and their feelings about even like within the sexual space, how people treat them, but also what happens when you have found family. And that found family is like, yeah, we have crossed the line and now I don't know what to do with that. And so I'm going to run. But in doing so, I'm not only hurting this person, I'm hurting my family. I'm hurting, their child. And what am I supposed to do knowing that this is probably the best friendship I've ever had? And this could be the best relationship I had. But again, because I'm self-sabotaging myself, that's a theme in some of these books, I am going to change how I react to this person, the things I do with this person, the things I say to this person. And in turn, that definitely messes up our friendship. This was actually one of my faves because it talked about that, because it talked about, as I said at the beginning, what happens when you have a mass presenting person and how they are treated, and just a somewhat drama. I ain't going to, hold it and say it's a lot of drama, but there is some drama with an outside person. And what happens when you don't cut that shit off immediately. Okay. Tethered. Tethered was a sci-fi, and I didn't like the main character. Yeah, I didn't like her, but that's just me personally. Okay. This story was really interesting because you have this divorced woman who has a child. Her child's father is like a billionaire, and he is using this child to try to get her back. But it doesn't make sense because he didn't want the child at first. And now he wants to play Billy Badass in these space streets and shit and take the child. And so she made a decision to try to get her child back. But in turn, that puts her in a very precarious location and space because she got on a spaceship without like nothing. It's just her body, her mind, her rage, and her mother's instinct to know that she has to get her child. Outside of that, I just felt like the main character was a little too immature. And the way that she navigated that immaturity, it was like, oh my God, if you would just listen and stop doing shit, none of these things would happen. But I get it. It's a book. You want a little bit of drama, but she just turned me off. But overall, I did like the story because it was something different. It's like, how you going to be like a deadbeat daddy in space? Like, you supposed to leave that shit on Earth. Like, what are we doing? Okay. What are we doing? But this is Tethered. My last book is Crossroads. This was such a sweet, like, Southern book. Okay. And it was such a sweet Southern book because you have this young lady who, man, her mama had died when she was very young. And so she didn't know her because her father kind of like cut that part of their life off, like just separated everything from that, from even the location where they grew up to move away. And then she's coming back home to a farm, a bee farm. I don't know if you could say a bee farm, but anyway, I forget what the term is for it. But anyway, she comes back because her aunt has passed on. And she thought that she had time to speak with her aunt, to ask her aunt about her mama. But because she was too busy working, she, was doing all these other things to try to reach this platform of I am making all these moves. I'm a girl boss, all that shit. She missed out on this opportunity to talk to her. And so she's dealing with the grief of knowing that she doesn't have her mother. She doesn't have the person who would know her the best to have a conversation about her. And then she's dealing with, I've waited too late to even get to know my aunt. So now I'm dealing with this. On top of that, her aunt went into business with a young lady who, that's how those two get together. And she sort of kind of feels a little bit jealousy towards her because she's like, you got to be with my aunt. You got to be in the space where you were a part of her life, a major part of her life. And I can't ever get that back. And so her navigating that space. So this story definitely had grief, definitely had some family secrets in it as well, which kind of threw me for a loop. I was like, well, slap me silly and call me Sally, because what was that? But overall, I like this book. So let's get back into the 5 Sapphic books that we just talked about. I Accidentally Locked Down a Witch, Down South Bayou, A Little Kissing Between Friends, Tethered, and Crossroads. I enjoyed all of these stories. I would definitely have to say that Crossroads is probably my favorite out of these 5 books that I've given you, just because I thought the story was just really sweet and it showed the depth of what happens with grief and when you have to share that grief with others and how that feels. And I enjoyed it. It was just a really sweet read. Now, I will say, as always, if you like any of these books, definitely try them for yourself. I think all of these are on Kindle Unlimited. But as always, give your girls their coins because we support authors here, especially independent authors. And as always, you are your longest and most expensive relationship. Any money or time that you spend on being your favorite version of yourself is never money or time wasted. And always, always, always make sure that you subscribe to the channel. All right, y'all.